Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I have Andrew Jenkins. Andrew, before we go any further, let people know where they can find you.
They can find me on Twitter at @ajenkins and on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/AndrewJJenkins.
Okay, fantastic. And you're pretty busy on social anyway, aren't you?
I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about rolling out social selling and the 5 considerations or the 5 factors that we need to look into in terms of rolling out social selling. Just give me a background in terms of some context about how you've got a lot of experience in terms of change programs. And organizations that want to transform. So just give us some context about that.
Sure. Well, just broadly, I've been in the online space for the last 25 years, first as a e-commerce entrepreneur, and then moving from e-commerce to wireless, and then for the last decade plus, running my own company called Volterra, focused on social media.
Okay.
Within that, have been doing work with larger organizations and sales teams in financial services and insurance on showing them how to use LinkedIn and other social selling methods and tools to prospect better, engage better, and add more people to their funnel.
Fantastic. And we met on social as well.
That's right.
So in terms of the 5 considerations, what do you think is the first one that we should be thinking about?
Well, a lot of people gloss over or completely ignore culture.
Okay.
And the expression "culture eats strategy for breakfast."
Yeah.
When you're rolling out social media or a social selling program, you are bringing change.
Yeah.
And you're going to have amongst a sales team some early adopters, some looking for a competitive edge. As an example, just to build on that, I was delivering a program to a bunch of wealth managers, and the people who sort of had this air of, yeah, I'm good, I don't need this extra help kind of thing, were the old guard.
Right.
And the new people who had to build a portfolio under management were hungry. They were asking questions. They were walking me out with questions. They were really, really hungry because they needed that edge, and they were starting from near zero. And that the old guard, I've seen that in numerous examples. People that are in commercial insurance or anything where they're the work that they've done is now paying a lovely dividend. It's kind of like look at the flywheel spinning. They don't feel that urgency. And there was a great analogy by a friend of mine who said to his financial advisor, he said, when I'm gone, my children will get all my money.
Yeah.
And he said, just out of curiosity, how are you going to connect with them, engage them? He goes, well, I'll call them. And he said, well, they're my kids. They don't even take my calls. So what do you think? Why do you think that phoning them is going to work? And so, give some consideration as to some new methods, new approaches, etc.
That's really interesting. I mean, in my experience, I come across all kinds of different examples of age and their either uptake or reluctance to use social. But you're right, because we're going through we're at the moment, a lot of organizations are not using social. They're going to move to an organization that is using social. That's going to require change. It's going to require a mindset change, and it's going to require a habit change. And that culture is so important because otherwise people just go back to doing what they did before.
Well, and I also think at the individual level, some of it's a mindset, a readiness or openness to change. I was working with an insurance company, and amongst their sales team, their top performer, who always thought about things strategically. He wasn't taking things quickly,
Mm.
but he was always kind of reflective as he took each step, and took it with purpose, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
And in between one of our sessions to the next, he had never synchronized his contacts with LinkedIn, and
Right.
he added 400 connections in
Yeah.
that same week, and he was like blown away. And I said, it's not just you knew those people previously because they're customers,
Mm.
but now you have access to 400 of their networks,
Yeah.
the referrals.
Mm.
And I said, that's an exponential spike in your network.
Mm.
And that he had never dawned on them.
Mm.
And now he's like, wow. But
Yeah, I
his
think
mindset was so different from his colleagues.
I think that's one of the things that people often miss is that there is this, by basically moving your territory onto digital, it enables you to scale at a so it's a classic do more for less.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can do more because you can access these people and you can access those networks, and it takes you less time.
Well,
And I think a lot of people miss that.
Well, an example I give to people I work with is that I used to work in film and television.
Mm.
And I say to them, I'd finish a project and I'd talk to my fellow crew members and say, do you know of a production crewing up that could use my help?
Mm.
And, do you have any guidance or suggestions? This was pre-internet.
Yeah.
And so someone would say, oh, give so-and-so a call. And I'd give them a call. And then they'd say, fax me your resume, when we still fax things.
Yeah.
But I had to do all the heavy lifting, all the detective work.
Mm.
Well, now, once you and I are connected on LinkedIn, I now know who you know.
Yeah.
And I can reach out to you and say, according to LinkedIn, you know this person. I don't know how well, but do you think they would be receptive to taking a call from me if you told them to do so? And let me make it easier for you. Can I just say you told me to call them?
Yeah.
And you don't even have to do any work.
Yeah. It's that level of frictionless communication that the people and ability to scale that a lot of people lose, because if you think about traditional legacy methods, it's a very serial way that you contact people. Mm-hmm. Whereas this is actually, you can do this in parallel, and you're able to I did today. I was prospecting before this call. And I spotted somebody that I know somebody, and I said, well, how well do you know this person? I said, well, I haven't seen them since so and so. I said, well, isn't that a great example for you to take them out to coffee then? It's like, and by the way, you could mention me at the same time. Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Oh well, okay. So.
And I'll buy the coffee.
Yeah. I'm happy to pay for the coffee. And that kind of moves on to the next point, which is, in the big social selling program that I was part of, we have one person in the sales team who his dog had 2,000 followers on Twitter. Mm-hmm. He'd actually had a sports parody Twitter account which got closed down by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and that had 19,000 followers. So he was very, very socially savvy. Mm-hmm. And if there was anything that we particularly wanted to do, we would go to Andy and go, Andy, we're thinking of doing this. Can you do it? Make it work. If he made it work, everybody else would go, wow, how did you do that? Now, that wasn't anybody telling people to do stuff, because immediately if you tell people to do that, they rebel against it. It was actually them going, and that's the second thing, which is about having change agents.
Mm-hmm. Well, Andy's a bright spot.
Yeah.
He's already exhibiting the target behavior.
Yeah.
And so you can showcase him, or, I mean, again, to your point, you don't want to be saying, be more like Andy.
Yeah.
You need them just to see, by being in his proximity, of what he's doing. And not to get academic, but there's an anecdote from a book called Switch about change by the Heath brothers. And they give an example about some missionaries that went into Asia. And I share this with the class that I teach at the University of Toronto, which is about social media. And we talk about change. And anyway, these missionaries went into it, and there was two communities side by side. One community was very well nourished, fed well, and had no issues in that regard. The other communities beside it, neighboring it, the children and many of the citizens were undernourished. But again, they're external. They can't come in and with their agenda and start waving other fingers saying that thou shalt do this, or listen to us. We have the answers. What they did was they started having cooking parties, and they hosted, and they brought members from each community together and let them interact. And the community of undernourished saw habits and methods from the other community that they adopted. It was just by bringing them together, and being that facilitator. And just picking up on Andy again, it's are there some folks that are exhibiting that behavior that you can showcase? Can you get them to share what's working for them? Even to admit and say, listen, I tried this, it wasn't working. I tried this, and it works. So that they can see themselves in the experience of their peer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we always see there's a bell curve of people, which is 20% of the people are not necessarily change agents, but want to do this. 60% of the people think it's a good idea, but kind of don't care, and 20% of the people are just not interested at all. And pretty much we find that in every single program we run, that is that bell curve takes place.
I have the same bell curve, but on the right in that top 20%, it's the count me in. They're the digital natives, or they're digitally savvy, or they're just natural live digital.
Yeah,
you get the 60 in the middle that are indifferent. Like, okay, if this is where we're going, fine, I'll go along with it. And then you've got the 20 on the left saying, I don't want to tweet and you can't make me.
Yeah,
because one of the things to highlight is it's not just salespeople. If this is over the whole organization, is if there's not consideration to, I've actually changed their job description. I'm asking them to do more in some cases. I'm not changing their comp. And so there will be resistance for that reason. And this is why you might want to loop in HR to say, well, listen, what, if any, pushback are we going to get? And can I get your help on how to best deal with this? Or how do you message these changes, even if you know that, listen, nobody's getting paid more. This is about potentially adding more to their funnel, so they're going to earn more from an overall comp point of view. But I need to position it as this is potentially a new behavior to adopt to help your efforts. And before we leave it, I just was thinking back to your example of Andy and his dog. People buy from people who they know and like, and people who know them.
Yeah.
And so often we build rapport and trust with people through connections or aspects of a connection that have nothing to do with our work. For you, it's vintage records. For others, it could be dogs. For others, this is why I tell people, when you look on the LinkedIn profile, what volunteer associations are people involved in? Because you may connect with them over they coach hockey or soccer,
yeah.
or football for you guys there.
Yeah, football. Yeah.
Or a charity. I was involved in a charity for children's education. So maybe if you've got a similar passion for education, whatever, like that, we could bond over that as opposed to something else. I look on your Instagram, you're a foodie. Let's talk about that instead.
Yeah, a good friend of mine has a very autistic son, and she didn't want to tell anybody. And I said, this is something that defines you, because Hector is someone who is so important to your life. You love him dearly, and it is so important. And actually, she's found ever since she's actually put that on her LinkedIn profile and told people that, she said, "Oh, I got a meeting with this VP." I said, "How'd you do that?" She said, "She's got an autistic son as well," and she contacted me. And what you'll find is that actually one of the things that we talk about is that actually the more the term authentic has become a little bit cliche, but the more yourself you are, the more people like that.
Well, and I don't want people to think it's being exploitative. I mean, my son has Asperger's. One of my clients was a center for autism and Asperger's. And so they knew my situation or my son's situation, and they knew that I had in a sense, a vested interest for their success. And we also connected for that reason. And as you said, we're more authentic, we're more human.
Yes.
And to me, it's not that I'm going to use whatever element of my family's situation to make a sale. That's not what I'm suggesting.
No,
just we're being more human.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So number 3, I was lucky. I had an executive sponsor who wanted to do this, and he allowed us to experiment. What do you think about executive sponsorship?
They're critical. One of the banks that I was involved with, the chief brand officer brought me in, gave me my mandate to help build the enterprise-wide team. It was a consulting engagement, began my endeavor. 4 months in, said, do you want to stay longer? I think you need to. Sure. Budget was approved to keep me. And then a month later, he resigned. And then as soon as he was gone, everything unraveled afterward, because the inheriting sponsor wanted nothing to do with social, et cetera. Another bank, we were rolling out, we developed a content engine for all of their financial advisors and mortgage specialists to use in their social selling program, in support of the same social selling software that I'd introduced at the other bank.
Yep.
And I was brought in by the senior VP of all this rolled up to, and he had 2 VPs beneath him.
Yep.
One joined the program, the other didn't. It's not that there wasn't interest in it, but felt a lack of readiness. But even now, that same SVP that brought me in, I mean, our program was over. He's moved on to another organization. So I don't know the state of the program once it was up and running, because there were some internal overseers, but he had been that sponsor and champion, but now he's moved on to another organization.
And slightly different from change agents are internal champions, people exhibiting the behaviors.
Right. Well, going back to earlier, like Andy, exhibiting that behavior and showcasing him. And again, not saying be more like Andy, but can you, instead of me or someone from my team saying be more like Andy, can you, in a subtle way, showcase what Andy's doing, give him the opportunity to share himself peer to peer. If we run a program and we're doing, there's a period of time in between, I'll call them coaching sessions or check-in sessions. One of the things that I try to do is make sure that from one session to the next, one or more people that are participating in the program talk about what happened in that interval, what worked for them, what didn't. And I'm just sitting back because the likelihood of change happening because peers sharing with peers is that much greater.
Absolutely. Communication.
You can never over communicate.
No. I've seen so many people wonder why projects fail, and it's like, well, you kept it a big secret. So
you can lose momentum if you're not careful.
Yes.
So you've got to remind people, what are we trying to do? Here's the path for the journey. Celebrate early milestones of success. Showcase them to the right people, executive sponsors, etc. Show progress towards the goal. But the reason you over communicate is sometimes, especially in a large enterprise, these projects could be months or a year plus. You've got to remind people this project is still underway. Let's not forget the journey isn't over. because they can get distracted with other things. Other projects can get emphasis, and suddenly the momentum begins to wane. And then people are, oh, whatever happened to that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the project that people are saying, whatever happened to. You want to be top of mind and be able to, like, off the cuff report on progress.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrew, that's been really insightful. 5 considerations or factors: culture, change agents, executive sponsorship, internal champions, and communication.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for your time today, Andrew. And remind everybody where they can get hold of you.
On LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Andrew J. Jenkins, or just Google Andrew Jenkins. First page of results will be me, a much better looking actor on IMDb, or a real estate agent in Australia, but you'll find me. And
Cool.
then Twitter is @AJenkins.
Fine. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your insight today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.